After Henry found his dead child's remains that Lucky had kept, Lucky finds herself in a mental hospital under the care of Dr. Moynihan. She pleads with them to let her leave, but the doctor is convinced she could help Lucky get better. Henry visits the hospital, explaining that his wife could never hurt their children and that he wants to see her. Dr. Moynihan refuses, saying that Lucky would only get better if she stayed in the facility where an expert like herself could fix her. She turns Henry away, but promises to let Lucky know he has visited. George massages Betty's wrist with Astroglide to ease the pain from being tied, while George tries to reason out why he had to do it. Then he tells Betty how he is trying so hard to make the bunker into a new home for her. He bought her new dresses, changed the wallpaper to match hers, and fixed everything just to make her happy. He admits he's aware of the prejudice they would face if people found out that a married woman ran away with another man. Oh, now you worried about prejudices in the world? Hell to the nah, Georgie Porgy psycho motherfucker. Meanwhile, one of Betty's friends, Nat Dixon, pleads to her husband Marty they need to move. But Marty says Betty the only one with guts around here. Then Earl enters to let them know that Sargent was shot dead, whom Henry killed recently. Nat phones her other friends and says Marty thinks the Emerys kidnapped Betty. Ain't nobody of color want to kidnap that Karen ass because you just know she'd just yapping. George is happy when Betty changes into the pink dress he purchased. He's prepared dinner, and Betty tries to smile even though she's frightened. But her smile fades, saying she usually puts ice cubes in her drink. Putting ice cubes in wine is pretty criminal. Embarrassed, George excuses himself to get Betty some ice, adding that he will get Betty anything she wants. After leaving, he puts back the lock to ensure Betty doesn't get away. After dinner, Betty tells George they don't have to hide their love and that she wants to move to his house. However, when Betty finds the chance, she grabs the corkscrew and stabs George in the neck. I'm pretty sure he wanted to do the drilling, not the other way around. George pulls out the corkscrew without getting mad at Betty. To her surprise, George says he will prove his love to her. Marty and Earl attack Henry when he least expects it. When Henry opens his eyes, he is tied to the chair, and his daughters are crying and held hostage by the two. Marty keeps beating him up no matter how many times Henry denies he knows Betty's whereabouts. He insists they never even talked. He is frightened whenever the gun is pointed at his girls, and he almost loses it when they ask how old Ruby is. Hell nah, them Whitey's PDF files too? He pleads with them to let the girls go, but Marty is not about to give up. They make Ruby cook them dinner, and they take the tools from the kitchen to continue Henry's torture. Marty grabs the shears and asks Henry to open his hand, but Henry refuses. Then they threaten to hurt the girls if Henry keeps resisting. To save them, Henry opens his hands and exposes all his fingers. In the corner of the room, the tap dance man watches him. Then Marty cuts off Henry's finger. The tap dance man shows his cut fingers as he experienced a similar situation. They drag the family down the basement, tie a rope around Henry's neck, and start strangling him. Fuck all these racist white motherfuckers. Why they look like their family tree a straight line? Ruby runs away while Gracie bites the man's leg but gets kicked. At the hospital, the nurse's face changes, showing the black hat man with his burned face. He asks Lucky how she managed to resist him. Then he says that because Lucky showed strength, she will receive the procedure as a gift from him, adding that the lobotomy will take away her memories of having any family at all. In this next episode, it's a little bit of its own episode, but bear with me. It explains why the Emery house is haunted and why the Black Hat Man keeps following them. Years ago, the Black Hat Man was a man named Epps, living in a community that shared his faith. He grieved the death of his son Miles and his loving wife, asking God to provide answers as to why his family was taken away from him. He admitted how he despised his community, seeing them happy with their own family. He didn't want their kindness. Instead, he wanted to destroy the world. Then he controlled his anger and went back to praying. On his way home, he saw a young boy hiding in the bushes. He took him home and cared for him as if he were his own, even naming him Miles. He thought God had answered his prayers, and his faith grew stronger. Miles saw a wagon breaking down one day and immediately informed Epps about it. Two black people emerged from the wagon, a man and his pregnant wife. Epps greeted them politely and explained that their destination was so far away. Then, wanting to help, he explained that his community believed and served God, but was not within a church. He saw that their wagon needed fixing, so he offered them refuge until it was fixed. He promised that they would be safe. Nah, fam, I wouldn't trust someone whose dental records are missing. On their first day, the couple was so happy because they were provided with food and shelter. Meanwhile, the community members had mixed reactions. Some didn't want them there, and others didn't mind having them as guests. The whiteys think the black people have started a war on their land, as if these pilgrim-looking ass are so peaceful. Everyone in the community was supposed to be equal, so some questioned why Epps thought he was someone special. On the first night, Epps saw his people watching the couple while they slept, and he told them to return to their houses and not bother the guests. One day, the husband offered to help since they'd stay with them while waiting for their wagon. Epps accepted the offer to appease the angry men in their community. One man explained that they had been digging wells looking for water, but to no avail. So the husband offered to help, saying they would find water if they continued digging. He got to work as the others watched him, and he was drenched in water when he finally emerged. Meanwhile, his wife, Martha, started sewing with the other women. They laughed and mocked her, asking what her original language was and if she'd give birth the same way as a regular woman does. The laughter even got louder when she said they were Americans just like them. Oh boy, got my monochrome blood boiling. Some of these women are speaking in Dutch in the scene, and they have the audacity to speak with their wrinkly folds as if they're not colonizers. During a meeting, people questioned why Epps was the only one who could talk to God if everyone was considered equal. So some thought that he was a prophet. They were convinced that if Christians like them couldn't find water, no matter how long and hard they worked, it meant that the black man used black magic to find water. Epps wanted to defend his guests. Then Miles handed him the Bible, showing him the exact verses he should read. He read a verse from Leviticus, saying that they may take those different from them as their property. And the community cheered him on. Miles is literally the devil incarnate. That night, he prayed as Miles watched him. Epps questioned whether it was acceptable to treat the guests as property when they came to them for help. But at the end of his prayer, he said he would obey. In the following days, the couple was treated differently. The husband had to work, but the men complained that he was always lazy. Epps prayed every night, and most nights he watched the black couple sleep. One time, he saw Martha looking back at him, but her face looked so different. Early in the morning, Epps lost his cross, and Miles wasn't there to help him look for it. Martha picked it up and handed it to him, but Epps was already losing his mind, and he saw an entity instead of Martha. Martha asked about their wagon so they could leave, but Epps raised his voice and complained about how Martha dared to demand things. She argued that Epps was the one who brought them there, and he probably did to make them work for the community. Epps grabbed her arm and twisted it so Martha hit his face. She writhed in pain as Epps twisted her arm harder, and even when her water broke, he didn't care. The couple is led by Miles to a barn, separated from each other before Miles opened the door to let them go. They took their horse and escaped in the middle of the night, but were caught and brought to trial. Epps judged the two, saying they were guilty of stealing a horse. The husband explained that the horse pulled their wagon, and it was theirs to begin with. But the community was deaf to their pleas, and Epps ordered that they be blinded. This is super traumatic to watch as the two are blinded on the church floor. Martha cursed Epps and the entire community, and to his surprise, the Bible he was holding started burning. The people tied the couple upside down and burned them alive as they watched in awe. This really a difficult show to watch in real time. I know it was bashed for showing too much black trauma, but sometimes this needs to be shown. Soon, the entire community and its members go up in flames thanks to their dumbuckery. Miles pulled Epps to safety, taking him down the basement. Then his face began changing, showing different faces to Epps. He said he was the one who answered Epps's prayers when God refused to answer. Then he told Epps that his work was not yet finished, adding that since Epps wanted to thrive over death, he would do so. It's clear now that Miles is really the devil. The devil asked him to destroy the black people by breaking their hearts from the inside. And with their broken souls, Epps would gain endless life and a power man could only dream of. But if he failed to make them suffer and make their lives a living hell, then Epps himself would suffer. Miles reached out his hand to Epps to seal their deal. When he accepted the terms, a beam falls on that fugly fool, and their community burned to the ground. The show then transitions from the community and into Compton. We assume that it's the same land that this has happened. All right, let's get back to the main series. When George doesn't return, Betty tries her luck and climbs a ladder, pushing her way out of the bunker. She's ecstatic that it's not locked, so she pushes her hardest until she gets out. Smiling, Betty runs across the field, glad she's finally free. Unbeknownst to her, George is watching from his house, and a bullet ends her short-lived happiness. Betsy no longer wants her udders milked by the milkman. Dr. Moynihan walks into the room and tells Lucky to think of the procedure as a gift. Then, Lucky successfully convinces the orderly to remove the straps on her wrists. And before the orderly could sedate her, she stabs him with the syringe. Ruby kills Earl using the huge axe in the basement. Marty can't grab the gun because Ruby is still holding the axe, so he starts running upstairs. The girls untie Henry, and he grabs the gun and chases Marty until he catches him outside. He shoots him a few times until he falls and can no longer run. Marty's wife comes to help him and threatens to call the police if Henry doesn't let her husband go. Henry gets angrier when the wife calls him the N-word, and the tap dance man appears behind her, taunting him even more to kill the baby inside her. Henry thinks about killing the pregnant woman just to get back at Marty, but then Ruby and Gracie scream for their father, pulling Henry out of his dark thoughts. He tells the girls to go back inside the house. When Henry follows them, the door slams shut and refuses to open. On her way out of the hospital, Lucky sees a black woman strapped on the chair and about to be lobotomized. She enters the room and hits Dr. Moynihan's head against the wall, the sink, and the door, killing her. Yeah, get that crackhead. But she don't even help the sister out. The black man at the main door sees her walk out but says nothing. He is literally me when I worked retail. Ruby, Gracie, and Henry are locked in different rooms and must deal with the ghosts that haunt them. Henry walks into a theater with a sign that says colored balcony, and the tap dance man continues to laugh at him for never being in the right place at the right time. Meanwhile, Marty points the gun at Clark for not having his back and helping out his wife. Then he calls him a bundle of sticks, the F word, so Clark stomps on his legs like it was just a bundle of twigs and snaps it. Then Lucky is already outside their house, and the neighbors are ganging up on her. She screams at them at the top of her lungs to scare them off, and as she walks onto the lawn, a fire starts around their house. Gracie enters the closet and finds Ms. Vera in a classroom, holding a stick to punish her. When Lucky gets inside her daughter's room, she hears Gracie screaming. Lucky confronts Ms. Vera to save Gracie, but the ghost is so strong that Lucky struggles to fight her. Gracie returns to her room, gets her book of Ms. Vera, and tears the page with her image into pieces. Ms. Vera's body then splits in half, finally defeated by the little girl. Ruby finds herself in the school bathroom, facing Doris, who used to be her friend. Doris scares her, making her think that Lucky will hurt her too, just like she did with their baby brother. The ghost puts a bag on Ruby's head and starts suffocating her. Ruby fights back, and when she finally snaps back to reality, she has already cut the side of her face with a shard of glass. Lucky calls Ruby's name over and over again to calm her down. Then she tells her daughter that she will never ever hurt her. Ruby apologizes to her mother and drops the shard of glass on the floor. The tap dance man mocks Henry, blaming him for what happened to Lucky and their son. He forces Henry to watch on the big screen what happened to Lucky and their boy while he was away. Henry can't look, but he can hear what is happening, and he is filled with anger. Then, Lucky holds his hand and wakes him up from the trance. She tells him that they can make it together and that he should be strong because their daughters need their father. So, Henry takes the gun and shoots the tap dance man. He grabs a white handkerchief under his coat and wipes the black paint off the tap dance man's face, revealing Eminem. The Emerys know that their house is surrounded, and even the police are waiting for them to come out, but they agree that they will no longer run away. Lucky goes to the basement and finds the Black Hat Man praying with his people. Epps explains to Lucky how her people are cursed and that the curse will always follow them. Then he shows Lucky her son Chester, saying he will give him to her as a gift. Lucky cries as she holds her baby boy, but she knows he's already gone. Epps is surprised that Lucky is able to fight him. She grabs his cross and throws it to the ground, blinding Epps. Then his entire body bursts into flames. The Emerys then walk out of the house and face their neighbors and the police without showing any signs of fear. The show ends just like that. If you're hoping for a continuation, there isn't one. Season 2 is a different story. You can find that recap in the playlist. I'll be honest, these past 6 episodes were difficult to watch. I had a hard time getting through it all, and I don't know if I can handle black trauma in the form of a horror TV show, as it's a lot to take in. Or at least this show was extremely graphic. For those who have seen the whole thing, did you think it was too much? And for those who just saw this recap, do you think even this was a lot? Let us know.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.